Catalina Aircraft Company has engineered the amphibious multi-role Orcon to support Marine combat operations in aviation assault roles worldwide. Drawing on the historic legacy of amphibious aviation operations, the Catalina Orcon fills a key role of deploying and keeping Marines on mission. Designed for expanded O-line flight maintenance, the Catalina Orcon is built to sustain the amphibious advantage. Visit catalina-aircraft.com to learn more.
Hey Scuttlebutt listeners, welcome to episode 251. This week we welcome Timothy Gick to the Scuttlebutt. Tim is the founder of the company Not a Very Good Teacher and the creator of the memory game adaptation Mission Match. Tim is also a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Reserve, so the concept of developing military-friendly educational games for kids is something that hits close to home. Also, back in episode 247, our gaming experts did a review of Mission Match, so please go back and give that a listen. Today, Tim talks to us about his path to the Yellow Footprints, some of the projects he worked on in his civilian life and how they influenced the foundation of Not a Very Good Teacher, what Mission Match is and what he's trying to do with the game, and what he has plans for the future. We just fed off his passion, and as a father, it was great to spend time with someone who is so immersed in the development of children and our future generations. This is episode 251. Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners. Thank you for joining us and your continued support. I'm Vic. I'm here with Nancy.
Hey, Vic. How you doing?
Pretty good. So for the folks who aren't aware, our family just became we're an emerging rugby family.
Okay.
And I know Vanessa's very excited by this. So actually, Vanessa, our social media coordinator, fantastic social media coordinator, is also a rugby player. And she kind of was the impetus behind this whole thing because she's had games around our area.
Yeah.
And so I told the boys, actually one day, we couldn't make it to one of the tournaments, but we were driving past and there were still people out at George Mason playing. I'm like, I wonder if my coworker Vanessa's out there playing rugby. And the boys said, what's rugby? And so that was the first domino to fall. And then we went to the sevens tourney. And so they really loved it. And then we actually went to a DC Old Glory match.
That's cool.
Yeah. And they fell in love with it. So all of that is a big shout out to DC Old Glory. Extremely vet friendly. All of that is. I went to a thing yesterday. It was weird. I got an email for an invitation to a pub in Fairfax for season ticket holders.
What?
I am not a season ticket holder, and so I told them when I showed up, I'm like, hey, I got this invitation. I think you guys are awesome, but I'm not a. They're like, don't worry about it. Just hang out. And
You're so honest.
And so I actually got to talk to Robin, the GM, this guy, Ricky, who I think he does marketing and communication. They have a retired gunnery sergeant who actually served with Tom Schumann.
Oh, really?
He's coming on the show.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they were
you were working. You weren't really relaxing.
It's both. This is a relaxing job. But anyhow, so I'm still kind of riding a rugby cloud nine right now. That was a lot of fun last night, hanging out with the team.
Also a good segue, you talking about taking your boys to watch rugby. What a great opening conversation for this episode that we are about to record. Talking about family time.
And for our listeners who are regular listeners, they will have heard my boys' review of this game Mission Match, which is an absolutely fantastic sort of adaptation of the standard memory card game that incorporates, obviously, has a very much a kid appeal because of the art that was used in it, has a very military feel to it, and then it has additional game mechanics that really, I think, are challenging, make it fun. My boys absolutely loved it. For those who haven't heard the review, go back and listen. If it's really great. But as it pertains to today, we have the creator of the game, Mission Match, Timothy Gick, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Vic. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us.
Your company is not a very good teacher with the not part crossed out.
Exactly. Yeah, we had to do that initially. If you look at some of the very, very first prototype, the not's actually not crossed out.
Yeah.
And we were.
Oh, wow.
I was out with some Marines on a hike. And we started talking about it, and one of the Marines actually was like, you should just cross it out, because I understand what you're trying to do and trying to kind of communicate, but it's getting lost. So that's why, if you notice on the blue box, which is the box you played, we crossed that out. So just that alone was hours and hours of work and back and forth, and what does that exact kind of cross look like? As you can imagine. But a fun endeavor nonetheless.
Yeah, sarcasm doesn't really work well in text, right?
Well, the genesis of that, if you remember, kind of, I don't know, number of decades ago, back when they had, half-price books and stuff, I remember kind of the initial ideation was, C++ for dummies, or accounting for dummies, like that yellow with the black character, kind of, the play on words.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be, kind of interesting for the overarching brand, yeah.
And so you mentioned, you're out on a hike with Marines. It's not because you're a fanboy. You are a Marine.
Yes,
you're
indeed.
a lieutenant colonel in the reserves. Is that correct?
I am. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, sir, thank you so much for being here. So let's talk about sort of your path to Yellow Footprints. Like, what brought you to the Marine Corps? Like, what was interesting about?
Yeah, so my uncle was a Marine Corps fighter pilot in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
He flew the A6.
Nice.
He actually flew in the same squadron as Charlie Bolton.
I was going to ask about that.
They were lieutenants together, and as you know, Charlie, director
by the way,
of NASA.
Nancy's ears is perked up big time. She talk about
airplane?
fanboys.
Yeah. Well, I can call. Actually, I spoke with him yesterday. He still, communicates with Charlie. So just let me know. Maybe we can work out a cool kind of thing there. But they were in Vietnam together. He wrote a book. He just incredible stories that they had. Just talking about his time there in service in Vietnam, flying with the squadron. I could talk entire podcast just about that. But there's a lot of inspiration there. His aircraft which is call sign E=mc², because he's a mechanical engineer, ended up being the head of mechanical engineering department at Cal Poly in California.
Oh, nice.
Wrote textbooks and all that. His aircraft is in a museum in California.
Oh, cool.
And so they went through the NASA pipeline together, him and Charlie. And then my uncle ended up getting injured and then pivoted and got his PhD, and then kind of the rest is history. But he was the underlying kind of inspiration to join the Marine Corps. And then more broadly, my father was in the Navy. He was in submarines. We're the same
So
height.
was my dad.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
he was serving on the USS Thomas Jefferson. He's also, not a small guy, and I don't know how he was going through, I've been in submarines, no thank you.
Yeah.
So
Hard pass.
Yeah, exactly. But he was a nuclear reactor technician, then got his master's in mathematics and did a lot of computer programming and so forth, and kind of pivoted in his career away from service. But, so in a broader sense, having that, just a lot of military, my other uncle was in the Air Force, my grandfather was in the Army, so just a litany of the services.
And
except for
what
Space
area
Force, I
of
guess.
the States is this?
I'm originally from Texas.
Okay.
Went to Texas Tech. And my roommate in college, actually, who, we'll talk about on the product development side, is an Air Force officer reservist and currently teaches JROTC in West Texas and at UTEP in El Paso. And I brought him on when I came up with the idea to help me, on the product development side. He's very much, when you go into his room, he lives with his parents. I love the guy. He has toys from floor to ceiling in the original packaging, like one of those guys, and I was like, man, Joe, we need to talk about this idea I have, because I have a good idea, but you're the game guy, right? I played video games growing up, but I kind of, haven't played in years. And so it's I know I need, as far as if you have this big idea, you need resources to apply to it. And so he was a really, really integral part. And it's a cool story. College roommates making this game.
Yeah.
That's,
So when you were at Texas Tech, was the Marine Corps like something that you knew you were going to eventually get to, or was it something that came up later? Like,
it wasn't. So my undergrad was in finance and just, business and so forth. And it wasn't really until the end of my junior year, I did a study abroad to Italy, and one of my professors was a West Point grad. And really he was the initial kind of like, hey, like, have you thought about this and so forth? And then I saw a lot of my peers that were like a year ahead of me and kind of the jobs that they were getting. And they were interesting, but I felt like really, I wanted a challenge. And I think a lot of us kind of, especially on the Marine Corps side, if you join the Marines, you've got options besides the Marine Corps. And I think one of the big kind of pushes is like you do it for that challenge. And so with my uncle, having conversations with him and seeing his career and what, he went through, I was like, I really, and then at that time, this is 2005, this is just, a little bit after post 9/11,
right.
You had OIF. So you knew, like, inevitably, it wasn't like you're joining during peacetime. You knew what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was one of the reasons why I was like, I can put my financial career, business career on hold and really, raise my hand, serve my country, and go out there and be challenged in a big way.
Yeah, I've got nothing but respect for the post 9/11 ascension folks like yourself, because, and I've told this story probably ad nauseum on the show, but I joined in '97. A fellow Marine that well, Colonel Mike Del Palazzo and I, we were. It was Clinton era Marine Corps. It was a Clinton era world.
Yeah.
You were hard as woodpecker lips if you did a MU and then actually did like a humanitarian, assistance or a NEO. Like, God damn, if you get a NEO, or if you like we had one of my, he was a little bit above me. So I was a lieutenant. He was a captain. He did the Bosnia. He was the second tracks. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, that guy's he's like Captain America, like Steve Rogers. So the world changed so much for everybody, but us in particular was such a wake-up call. 9/11 was such a wake-up call. For you guys who came in after, though, man, it was like, because like you said, you knew what you were getting yourself into.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did your family respond to that information?
It was tough, especially for my mom. Like, she knew, and she was, with my dad on the latter part of his service, and she knew kind of the implications of what that is. And then, knowing full well that, we would, there's a high probability of, actually seeing conflict and so forth. And so, but they supported me all along the way. So, I will say, they were there for me. That they knew, the pathway, and now it's been 19 years. What
was that like going to the OSO in Texas? I can't imagine him like, we're actually kind of backed up.
Yeah.
Like, we're kind of full.
Well, so initially, that's a good question. Initially, I was actually a flight contract.
Okay.
So with my uncle being the inspiration, and then so he got me an opportunity to fly. I flew once with the Marines. It was a King Air. I'll never forget. And I flew, and then I quickly realized it wasn't for me.
Really?
Yeah, because pilots. It was great for my uncle, who's an engineer, who's highly structured and everything else. But as you can see, I have a bit of creative art flair about me, right? And so it's not like you're the movie Top Gun, where you can just like do the the flybys and kind of just like
Maverick and Goose.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll put on the brakes and he'll fly right by.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not the reality of.
It's actually boring, isn't it?
It is. It's like you must go this heading, this airspeed, yada yada, and I know there's more involved in that, right? But I just felt like for me, it made sense to pivot. Get a ground contract. And I'm sure there's a pilot today that filled that seat and is happy for it, right? So
yeah. And so where did you Did you do PLC or did you wait to graduate?
So I graduated and then went to the
OCC,
OCC route. Yep, exactly.
Okay. And then, so TBS, like right after.
Correct.
Racked and stacked. What MOS did you come out with?
So I came out with Ground Intel.
Okay.
0203. Yep. And then my first unit was West Coast, first LAR.
Oh, nice.
So really kind of unique opportunity.
Polgus.
Yeah, exactly. So my first month there, we had ready. So I was part of the S2 shop initially, and so we had S2, 2 Alpha. I was like 2 Bravo, like the lowest guy, and they had a cool mission that we actually got to go out and support conquests in Mongolia with first tanks. So I got to go out there and do my first kind of foreign security advisory, like straight out of the gate, my first month really. And the highlight of that I'll never forget. So the Mongolian general, we're out there for a month, and then there's kind of like the Finex, and then he loves basketball. We're talking about games, and so this was hilarious. I'll never forget this story. We're about to play this huge basketball tournament, and
like Marines versus the Mongolians. Is that
so?
Like
well,
that
it was multinational.
Oh,
so
okay.
there was the South Koreans, there's the Filipinos, there's I can't remember all the different countries, but it was a pretty big tournament. And then he handpicked his team because he played for the Mongolian national team.
No way.
And he's just like kind of like a little pudgy, like doesn't look like he could play basketball type of guy. And so he picked like the tallest players. Like I was on his team at the time, like I played basketball in college. Like I, at the time was quite athletic. And so we were excited, but the most bizarre thing about it before we played, we're in the yurt, like the Mongolian yurt, it's like a tent basically. And we're in there and he like snaps his fingers, and I'll never forget, this guy comes in with a tray of vodka shots. And it's like in the morning, and we're about to like play a full basketball tournament, multiple games. It's like we drink first and then we play. And we're like, what?
I love this.
And this wasn't like a small shot, like it was a giant glass of vodka. It was basically a glass of vodka. And so we drank it, and there's okay, we play now. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm playing pretty loose now. But this guy really, it was impressive. He could shoot and everything else, but he also strategically did the bracket. So our very first team was against, I felt really bad for him, South Korea, and we're all head tall, and we beat him 45-1 or something. We gave him on purpose, here, just make a layup, please.
You're fouling him just to give him free throws. Like, would you just make a free throw?
Exactly. So it was fun, just. The Marine Corps, you have stories like that. You have combat stories, obviously. It truly is an adventure.
So wait, rewind. So you played at Texas Tech?
So no, I played hockey for Texas Tech for the club team.
Okay.
And I played basketball in my fraternity.
Okay, gotcha.
And actually, so one of the gentlemen downstairs, Texas Tech grad, and we were talking with him. I played against Wes Walker on a basketball game one time. And I didn't know who he was, but all I knew was this guy's incredibly fast. and it's American basketball, which is physical, right? And I somehow hit him, and his nose was bleeding or whatever. And one of the guys in my fraternity was like, "Do you know who that is?" I have no idea. I was like, "It's Wes Walker." He was he's one of our football all-stars, and obviously I was like, I don't care who he is. He's on the team.
Yeah, that's right.
So
I
just want to win the game.
My hips, man.
Exactly.
A little hockey check action.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
No problem.
I don't care who he is if he can't handle a post up. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
My ball. That's awesome. Yes, so you bloodied up a Super Bowl champ.
Yes, I did.
Good job.
Yep.
All right, that's the end of our interview. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing your time. I saw some of the pictures from your guys' website. My favorite picture is you next to an Amtrak. God bless you. So what happens next? So you're doing your ground intel thing, LAR. Was it 4? Did you do a 4? And then how was the progression into the SMCR?
Yeah, exactly. So I did 4 and out.
Okay.
I 3 deployments for OEF. And then I was a mixture of in uniform and out of uniform as a contractor.
Okay.
And then when I started looking into the reserves was in 2013. when I kind of, took like I like to ride motorcycles. I've ridden motorcycles and now going on 75 countries, so a lot of motorcycle riding.
Wow.
And I was doing some riding, and then I thought to myself, I miss it. I want to get back in. So joined 123 out of Houston, Texas.
Okay.
An awesome battalion. I think it was my favorite battalion by far. Great leadership. And Colonel Korth, who's still in now, and Colonel Mark Wood, who recently retired FBI. Just really great leadership, and got some cool opportunities there. I, got to join as a sniper platoon commander, which was amazing. And just getting that time out, with the Marines at the ranges, doing some cool kind of, joint, missions with DEA and otherwise. And so had some unique opportunities there. I got to deploy with them as well to the Republic of Georgia, in Eastern Europe. And really that deployment really changed my life because, I was able to start my first company, and operate out of Eastern Europe after that.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so you have a restaurant there, is that right?
Well, I've had 6 businesses. So my very first business, and maybe I had some beginner's luck, but I started. Basically, I pursued a contract in Georgia to support the Marines, doing interpreting and translation. And so at one point I had over 100 people working for me.
Wow.
Out there, and
they were Georgians who spoke English? English? Okay.
So we basically acted as the intermediary between the Georgian Armed Forces and the U.S. Marines that were doing the Georgia Deployment Program missions, GDP ISAF, GDPR, so on and so forth. And then we expanded, won the transportation contract. I set up a dispatch center and just a lot of different stuff out there.
Are you of Georgian heritage?
I'm not. Well, so close by in a sense. So on my mom's side, we're from Armenia.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, and that's a whole nother really kind of wild story. My family, and maybe this is like maybe a little bit of a downer, but it is history, right?
Yeah.
So, there was the genocide between the Armenians and the Turkish, and like our family was a kind of a fluent family there, and they knew not if but when they would come in and so they, much like Anne Frank, they went into hiding, but they had these gold coins, and they hid these gold coins in the last place you would possibly look, in the ashes of their fireplace. They went into hiding. Turkish forces came in, ransacked the house, took everything that was a value, left. My family came out of hiding. The gold coins were still there, and they used those as passageway to Ellis Island in New York.
No way. How amazing. Yeah.
So just
like you said, I mean, well, one of the big things that I noticed is a constant theme with not a good teacher is resilience. And I mean, yeah, damn. That's super resilient. Yeah, unbelievable.
It is. My life has been that way.
Yeah.
Not trying to get emotional or something, but
it starts early, right? That's where you get it, right?
It absolutely does. So, and I think, that's really one, and you hit the nail on the head. One of the underlying objectives of Mission Match and the broader Not a Very Good Teacher brand is teaching resilience. Generation Alpha, which so what are we talking about? Generation Alpha? That's kids born between 2010 and 2024. That represents over 50 million kids here just in the United States alone. And that's a huge part of our population that, and with emerging technology, they always say, Generation Alpha, it's the most digitally connected yet socially disconnected generation in history.
Yep.
Right.
And so, that's really where we're trying to meet them, and trying to get them to understand, hey, life is not easy. You need to be resilient. And, and this game and, the broader brand really kind of centers a lot of our objectives on that.
Yeah. Well, we joke around that the show shouldn't be called Scuttlebutt, it should be called Segways, because I just take a rabbit hole. But the one rabbit hole I definitely want to jump down on this, as it pertains to especially the mission of your company, is that we had a really bad, I mean, obviously COVID sucked for so many levels, but it was like this perfect storm of like submarining our culture. because you had the social media algorithms that were, it was an attention economy. Like we were the product. I remember the documentary, was it Social Dilemma, talked about, look, if you're paying for something and you don't have a product, you are the product. And so we had this attention economy, and then we had everybody bunkered down. And so the only connection we had was algorithmic. And now we're coming out of that and wondering why kids are feeling lonely and disconnected when, like you said, but we have all this technology that connects us in ways that we've never had in human history, but yet we've never felt lonelier.
Of course. Well, it's simple, actually. If you think about it, Generation Alpha is also known as the anxious generation.
Yeah, right.
And there's reasons for that, right? So, if you're on a device all day, it's dopamine, and you can talk about the whole applications of and all that. But at the end of the day, if you're consuming content and doing those type of things on a regular basis, especially a child that hasn't fully kind of
Yeah.
So it's the implications of that. Like we now see, right? We didn't know it, but now there's this big pivot to IRL, right?
Yeah.
In real life, 180 degrees. People are wanting to come back, especially with COVID. They want to come back. They want to be able to reach out and touch somebody,
right?
Yeah.
Right?
See somebody face to face and have an actual human interaction.
Absolutely.
There's no replacement for that.
But the problem, though, is that we're not trained in it. So I look at my youngest is 9. He missed out on kindergarten and first grade. And I'm not implying that, but the thing that I'm noticing of he and his, I'm just going to use him as sort of the avatar for the generation, but they didn't have to go through his older brother who's turning 12, who was told, went to a school when they were very young, and you have to sit here and you have to listen to the teacher and you have to not be disruptive and you have to not be a distraction and you can't be distracted. There's all these sort of structural things that the generations were denied because we bunkered down for all of the reasons that we bunkered down, however you want to frame that. And so those really formative things that we sort of took for granted growing up because, being in public school was just what you did.
Right.
They didn't have that sort of those intangible training, right? That constant repetition of being in a social environment.
Yeah,
and
now
scene.
good soliloquy.
Yeah.
We could go. Speaking of segues, we could go on and on. Turn this into a whole conversation.
But it is important as
but
we're talking about what you're doing to sort of right the ship, or in a way, right?
Absolutely. Kind of, and maybe this is a good kind of segue to kind of the genesis of the idea. So in
but really quick before we get into that,
sure.
I do want to talk about because so this isn't something you just fell in on. You've been very successful at startups.
Yes.
Right. You're not a stranger. You didn't just have a good idea one day and then all of a sudden now we have a
No. Yeah, kind of going back, I think, to your initial question.
Yeah.
So, had that company there in Eastern Europe. This was 2015, 16. And, we were acquired by a large prime contractor, we'll just say. And after that, I had a kind of going back to what you were talking about, the burger shop. So I did have a restaurant in Tbilisi. I still own the property today. A guy from Kazakhstan runs a bar there.
That's
now.
wild.
But
so
I met a guy who still works with me to this day. 2 people that were part of my original company still work with me to this day with Not a Very Good Teacher. And I met him literally at a bar. He was flipping burgers with his wife, literally at the bar. And I heard about him, and I heard he was looking for an investor to start up his idea for this burger shop. And I was like, well, I got to test out the burgers first. And I tested them, and they were amazing. And this is before, you got to think, Georgia is a very small country in the Caucasus. There's only 4.5 million people, especially at that time. There was 2 burger shops in the whole country. I mean, the market wasn't saturated. There was a real need for it. The burger shops that existed were McDonald's and one other. And it was just, I come from Texas. I think it's like amazing food, Tex-Mex barbecue, good, restaurants and so forth. So I knew that with, Geo, that's what the restaurant's name is called, Geo, Burger and Geo together, right?
Nice.
And, I knew it'd be successful. Now, the business model itself, and, we're talking about business for a moment, before we opened, so we had secured this property, but I told him, and this is kind of maybe an entrepreneurship lesson learned, I guess, for those in the audience that, are aspiring business, you got to really look at the, do the analysis and go with your gut.
Intel.
Yeah. I mean, my gut told me that this wouldn't actually make money, but I did it because it's exciting to have a restaurant, right? At the time I wasn't married, so it's a great place. Like, hey, come to my restaurant or whatever for a date. That's kind of cool. But the location was too small. And you can't, it's all about turning, right? Especially at that time, there wasn't like, Uber Eats or whatever.
Right.
And so we couldn't, deliver and what have you. So, but I tell you, we were top 10% on TripAdvisor. We sold out every single day. And it was an awesome place. And because of that restaurant, one individual that would eat there frequently said, hey, I love what you're doing with this restaurant. Why don't you run my blockchain company? And this is like, during the big kind of like ICO boom of like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and ICO stands for initial coin offering. So that was in 2016 into 17. And I said, you know what? Why not? So I ran that company. We launched our ICO and raised, just under $15 million in a year. I traveled to like 25 countries and was all over the place. And it was like probably the hardest thing I've ever done by far to do something like that. And, what an ecosystem and a learning experience. Got to travel to China, doing business in China. That was interesting. Let's put it that.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Well, I got to imagine as a former Marine, they probably weren't too stoked to have you on deck, right? Like,
yeah,
they
were actually pretty friendly.
Okay.
What I was kind of blown away was, their technology. They were so far advanced in a lot of ways, which, we're talking about our industrial base. That's a whole nother conversation. And I think like, we're all cognizant of that. But, you could go to a fruit shop there and buy, a banana or something and pay with it with, WeChat, basically. And this was many years ago.
But wait, actually, you would have been in the reserves then at this point, right?
I was in the IRR.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering about like the whole keeping tabs on what you were doing and stuff, because
I dropped to the IRR because I couldn't juggle everything.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, that was like, very busy time running the restaurant, at that point I was exiting my company and then joining a new company, so 3 companies all at once. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's a
what
full
an
plate.
Interesting
Seriously.
experience, though.
Yeah, it was.
And that set you up for the next thing?
It did. Well, it was a good lesson learned, and this kind of goes to, doing your due diligence, another entrepreneurship lesson learned, right? I was the CEO, but minority shareholder in the company. The majority shareholder didn't share, let's just call it, the same values and maybe moral compass that I had. So we had raised all this money, and I wanted to do basically I was like inquiring with PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, to do like a third-party audit of our, to disseminate a report to our investor pool. Hey, this is what's going on. And we had filed with the SEC, but it's not a non-regulated environment, especially at that time. This was way early on. And I just wanted to, like, in the essence of transparency, hey, this is what's going on. And as soon as he kind of found out about that, he's like, no, we're not going to do this. And I was like, well,
that's a red flag.
Yeah, big time. And I was like, well, yeah, we are going to do this. Like, I'm the CEO. And then he's like, well, we're not going to do it. And so it was just back and forth. And so I resigned. That was it. I resigned the next day and had a very kind of tough lesson learned.
Ethics in business. Amazing.
Well,
yeah.
Hats off to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said lesson learned. I think the lesson learned should be for our listeners that you stick to your scruples, man.
Exactly.
Like you have an ethical backbone and you stick to it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know obviously the details and stuff, but just hearing that story, I'm like, the lesson learned is for us.
Yeah.
Like that was badass.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's lesson learned in that, and also, it's just, kind of, knowing who you're doing business with, and just maybe not moving so quickly. Like I was in my early 30s and saw the opportunity and didn't really maybe think through all the different angles, more than just I knew that marketplace, especially at that time. We really hit it. Like we rode the Bitcoin kind of wave at that time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you just, I think, as you go into and explore anything, whether this game or otherwise, it's just wise to understand who you're doing business with, and not just internally but externally, right?
Yeah.
And some of our partnerships that we're working now as well. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we will get to the specifics of not a good teacher, but there was something before that, right? And so you where you were exposed to sort of you were in the trenches of what the demand signal was for what it is you're providing, right? Because you did some work for Toys for Tots.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So I would call it, I was part of an I&I unit. So McCack Bravo, which is the Marine Corps Advisory Company Bravo on the West Coast outside of San Francisco in the Bay Area. I joined them in 2022 as assistant I&I, and it was awesome. Very small, agile team. We got after a lot. So I was, kind of the site XO / OPSO, because it's a small team, you're filling a lot of different roles. And part of those duties was Toys for Tots, right? And so we're in the warehouse, and I think we did 30,000 toys that year, something like this, like a lot. It's a lot. You're working your day job, and then, hey, we're going to shoot to the warehouse, spend an hour or two, just get after orders and so forth. But you get to handle a lot of toys. And there's some really, really cool toys that, gets sent out at the same time. There's a lot of toys that aren't so good. Let's be honest, right? And, and inevitably you have to look like, what is the mission of Toys for Tots? Like there's multiple layers to it, but broadly, it helps a very underserved market for underprivileged families throughout the United States. And that represents, a lot of kids, Generation Alpha we're talking about. And, if you give them some Chinese knockoff toy that's totally meaningless, well, what good is that, right?
Right.
And I thought to myself, I think we can do better, I think we can actually create a game and distribute it and have real impacts through like a game that's like quite fun and everything else. And that's where I got this idea. I was seeing these like toys. Some of them were just like, this is ridiculous. Like what? And in hundreds and thousands of like the same like ridiculous toy that's getting disseminated out. And I'm like, man, like we can really make some impacts here. So that was November 22 was the initial idea. Like, hey, I think I can create this game, a game. And I wasn't sure what it would be at all, but I was just like, that was the first seed.
That is
year.
Very cool.
So the game idea came before the company idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no.
Oh,
so
okay.
the company that Not a Very Good Teacher is a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. So my company, Allegheny LLC, the incorporated company, has been around since 2020. We've been doing design, interpretive media. Like I've had probably 50 plus clients on the commercial and government side. We've done all kinds of jobs, anywhere from working with one of the largest sunglass companies in the United States, like rebranding them, to working with the FBI, creating fake websites for the FBI as cover for agents in Afghanistan.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that never happens. To working with the Department of Veteran Affairs, launching national marketing campaign supporting veterans with PTSD. Like we've done all kinds of different projects.
Wow.
So tons of work. We've done exhibit work with Army Corps of Engineers at a museum. Just like really cool. We've got a talented team. Like we're comprised of a lot of graffiti artists,
cool.
including myself included. We've done exhibit with Banksy. You probably heard of Banksy.
Yeah, I know Banksy. Yeah.
So we did a huge exhibit with him, and so we have a very talented team. And so we have a creative lens on really anything. And so when I told the team, hey, guess what? We're going to sunset everything we're doing, all of our projects, and create a card game for kids. they were on board.
Oh, nice.
Like it's okay. It's okay to pivot. And that's when we did the DBA, and that's when we decided.
I love that.
That's so cool, man.
And I love how.
What great crossroads.
Yeah, and how varied the experiences are, and the idea of let's try something new. That there's not enough of that. There's not enough of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and the true kind of discriminator between like the two kind of general pathways, if you look at it like where the company was going and serving clients and then creating Not a Very Good Teacher, the difference is we had clients, those clients had their visions, and we realized their visions through what's a product, service, or otherwise, right? Like, hey, we need a website, we need a logo, we need a museum exhibit. Awesome. And we delivered, and we put our, heart and soul into those things. But truly, though, when you create something that literally doesn't exist, that no one's asked for, that you've seen that's solving a real problem, that's also incredibly amazing, it's something else, right? So like the work and the representation and the high quality that's getting, visibility at the absolute highest levels, the Pentagon, U.S. playing card company that's been around for 144 years, just like people wanting to get on board and support us, it's indicative of like a true passion.
Right. Well, and it's your vision that's being realized as opposed to you helping someone else realize their vision, which checks a whole different box. What has the response been? Tell us a little bit more about that.
It has been just something that I guess, you want to have a big vision, you do. But it's incredibly difficult, right, as well, because, you have these ideas and then you have this broad vision. But, man, it takes some resilience.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Echodyne's high-fidelity radars for maritime missions ensure expeditionary forces maintain decision advantage from shore to sea. Rapidly scale, evolve, and maneuver. Echodyne is trusted by defense organizations worldwide. Learn more at echodyne.com.
And now we're back.
I can kind of walk you through kind of the progression of the game.
Yeah.
So I know like the audience may not be able to see this, but we've got the different kind of variants of the game from the initial progression of even just testing the boxes. You can see here, this is terrible. You're not going to hit a home run out of the gate, right? So going through this process, understanding, one of the big things also kind of pivoting here, going back for a moment, I also knew I wanted to manufacture this in the United States. And this is actually way before the administration, which I know has done a big Made in USA, and I love that. But, I had this vision before, and I knew, part of the objectives of what I was going to move forward and the representation of what the game means and the movement means should be made in the United States.
Yes.
It couldn't be made anywhere else.
Right.
Right. So that was incredibly difficult to pull off, like testing and time in and time out. And you can see here, I couldn't deliver a game like this. It falls apart. So we found a very good mom and pop family run business in Florida that makes our.
That's a good looking box.
Yes.
Too.
And so. We were able to pull that off, and now we have a good relationship with them, and they manufacture all of our stuff. And we're very proud of that, to be able to, make a game as a service to sale veteran small business, made in the United States. It checks so many boxes, right? So
what a good thing.
Yeah, and but when it comes to like rolling, like your go-to-market strategy, like kind of getting the game out there and the early adoption, just like with the adoption curve, it took resilience, right? So here at Marine Corps Base Quantico, our very first event that we did, the director of the youth center, I went in there. It took me 7 times. So I couldn't, we had initial conversations. I'm trying to explain to her, what's going on with the game. And at the time, we didn't even actually have the game. All I had was a flyer of the game. I said, hey, I'm going to make this game. It's coming. And it's hard, right? When you're a startup, you have to kind of like, present something, and then it's like it's all being made. You're building the airplane as it's flying. So I literally just had the flyer, and I said, I want to do this event with you. I have this game. And so undoubtedly, who's this guy is coming in? And so it took time. And that's part of the resilience piece. It's like, if I went in and you get rejected once or twice, let's call it, and I just moved on, well, we may not even be here today.
Yeah.
But like, I went in again and again. I said, I'm still here, and finally on the 7th time, I was just like, I can't walk out of here unless you tell me yes. And she said yes, and it was this absolute hit. We did the Pathfinder games, which I'll get into here shortly, and the kids loved it. Her staff loved it, and she actually just emailed me about a month ago and said, hey, I want to do another event with you. So we're doing one here on August 14th at Marine Corps Base Quantico Youth Center, a huge event with 75 kids that will be with our new product, Mission Fit.
That's cool.
Oh, okay.
So Mission Fit is our very next product, which, we're basically, so one of the elements of the game is a physical fitness, Muscle Monkey, right? So which has been really, I think, one of the most well-received aspects of the game.
Yeah, my boys loved it.
Right?
Yeah.
So now we're rolling out Mission Fit and really kind of like setting up, kids to get fit and get healthy, and then also it's a pathway that basically parallels the Presidential National Fitness Award.
Okay.
That's something growing up I remember.
Yes.
Right? And I remember, like the red patch and the blue patch, and I remember for a couple of years I got the red patch, and then I was trying to get the blue patch, and I remember having to work very hard for that. And my last year before I went into junior high, I tested and I got the blue patch, the Presidential Fitness Award, and I felt really good about it, but I worked extremely hard to get there. And since, the program was sunset in 2013, now it just came back literally on May 5th. Mm-hmm. President Trump, wrote the executive order. Rob Wilkins, who was on his advisory board, I reached out to him. And now we were just interviewed about a month ago. Muscle and Fitness Magazine interviewed me and Joe, my roommate, and they're going to have a piece on this with Mission Fit. And so this will be a really cool game that will kind of get Generation Alpha up, moving, and active. And so our very first event with that product will be here at Marine Corps Base Quantico Youth Center.
That's awesome. What a great thing. And will Mission Fit be card-based also?
It will be card-based also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds. So when I was actually active with all my limbs, moving up route in conjunction with one another, we would do a similar thing with a standard deck of cards, and each suit was a different type of exercise. Mm-hmm. You just sort of randomly pull the card, and whatever that number was how many repetitions of whatever that exercise was, and you try to make your way through all 52 cards, and of course I did it every time.
Of course you did.
Nailed it. But anyway, so is it something along those sort of...
It is. It aligns with, so like the testing aspects of the President National Fitness Award. So we tried to pair it up with that. And, ironically, one of the areas that we found that kids need improvement is mobility. So it's not just about the exercise themselves, but, like the stretching, because you have to do that's part of the testing.
Yeah.
So we wanted to ensure we're setting them up from the standpoint of both, exercise and fitness, but also mobility.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mechanics, I love it. That's
one thing that also was interesting about the game that we found is not just about kids, and you're a perfect example of this, is like parents inevitably will play the game often with their kids, right? Play mission match, and then they'll do the exercise with their kids, and they'll realize, oh, I'm a bit out of shape. But really. And so it's also kind of reinvigorating, our generation to get up and like, hey, we need to exercise and be healthy for our kids as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Yeah, my wife and I joke around all the time because we got in the game a little late, and it's like, man, being 50 years old with, with tweeners, and it's like, this is a young man's sport.
Yeah, parenting is for sure a young man's sport.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, where can people find these games? Where can you buy them?
So, good question. We, my initial strategy was focusing on the government because, so the idea besides the game and the overarching kind of theory that I had and kind of the broader movement was, if you think about you can have these kind of pillars, right? And so you have organizations here, and then you have members here. And so what do organizations need? They need members, right? So then how do we get members to join organizations? And it's a whole like pathway. And so kids can, the idea is like on a broad sense, I want to connect them with organizations, opportunities, and information. Those are the three kind of like pillars, but then there's three pathways to get there: leadership, STEM, and military. And this is all layered into the games. And so in essence, I want kids, like I joined the Boy Scouts, or formerly Boy Scouts, now Scouting International, went through the whole thing, became an Eagle Scout, and I found a lot of, value in that. There's leadership elements to that. And, I'm really trying to encourage this generation to join an organization like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have call to action in our information kind of Your Future portal today. Kids can join Young Marines or Sea Cadets or Civil Air Patrol.
Devil Pups or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all those different things. So we want them to join these organizations, and that's what this game and the games, Mission Match Adventures and Service, our book that we've written, has the same CTAs, right? Hey, explore opportunities, think about, the early careers. Generation Alpha is making those decisions much earlier than other generations just because of the information on what they're thinking about, what they want to do in the future. And so if we can arm them with these opportunities, and, it's like, at the end of the day, yes, you can join the military as a result of this. Like, you take Gunny Gus. I love Gunny Gus as a Marine.
Everyone loves Gunny Gus.
So we have the Gunny Gus mission card here. And when you scan this, it'll take you to the Marine Corps landing page. And then on the Marine Corps landing page, based upon your age, it'll connect you to Young Marines, Bill Davis and their team. It'll take you, if you're a little older.
Friend of the show,
Bill Davis, yeah.
Yep, to JRTC. And if you're a little older, the Marine Corps directly, right? And so you can make those decisions.
That's really cool.
Right?
How clever.
Well, the thing I love about it, too, is how in a lot of ways you're focusing on military kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I get kids are, well, and that's the thing. We have this assumption that, kids are kids. But it doesn't account for the nuances of the environment that a lot of the kids are growing up in. And one of the underserved demographics, I think, is military kids. And so the cool thing about this is you've factored in the realities of their life, and that a lot of times it's moving.
Yes.
In transition.
Yep.
And this is something that they can take with them and play during that time of transition. And it's just, and we've talked to Gunnar about this with Toys for Tots, is, their whole thing is it's more than just a toy. In a lot of ways, this is more than just a game. This is a thing that links them together and puts them into community, even if physically they're constantly bouncing from one physical community to the next, right?
And so if you can imagine a world, and really the insight of this whole thing, if you can imagine a world where, a child could go through their pathway, right? They do all these things, and we have all these layers. Like, we have a volunteer layer where basically organizations can provide mini missions. Like, for instance, if you did a mini mission every week, so if you did 52 mini missions, and that could be comprised of anything, volunteering or otherwise, you'll receive a scholarship. So we're working with the Disabled American Veterans. They have a huge scholarship that they're offering. And so it's like organizations can offer these scholarships and opportunities and mini missions. Kids can complete them. And then when they're, going into college, they basically have this resume, because the resume captured everything they've done, because they basically have their portal that ties into absolutely everything. So it sets them up for success. It tracks all those things. Like, one example is with, Scouting International now. They have a veterans merit badge that just got released. And part of the requirements for that merit badge is you must interview an active duty service member today. We can facilitate that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, like, down the road,
Amazing.
A vision is to have, when a child is exploring the Marine Corps, I'll have interviews with people doing different jobs in the Marine Corps that is like towards an audience that they can speak to, an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, so they can understand, okay, the Marine Corps is something different than I thought entirely.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe the Marine Corps is not for me. Maybe I want to join the Air Force or otherwise, right?
Right. Or the people that are joining these institutions are individuals and not the Borg in Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Like just cogs in a machine.
Yeah. And I love the idea of a game that serves specifically the military child community. I grew up in a military family. I raised children in a military family, and having this thing that can connect this whole group of kids. I mean, the importance of it, from my perspective, is you show up at a new school, and that's got its own challenges. But one of the things I think that I have found is universally challenging for all military kids is the group of students who've grown up together their whole lives. They've got this shared group of memories. Like, oh yeah, you remember in kindergarten when, Miss So-and-so was our teacher and she did that thing. And, you're the outsider and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so this is a really, really great thing that can help strengthen those bonds for military kids.
Absolutely. And kids, even they've got the representation and the characters, like Gunny Gus is my favorite, or Fighter Falcon, or Shipmate Sam. So that's already happening. When we did the Pathfinder games at the Pentagon just here at the end of April, we had many families that came in and said, we've got the game, we love it, there's definitely a following to this because we've done so many of these events. And, besides the actual physical card game itself, one of the very important things and really kind of like it aligns with the broader idea is the Pathfinder games. And it's the idea of like finding your path, right? Not everybody. And, the reality is the vast majority of these children are not going to join the military. But the good news is we have other pathways. We don't just have service. Right. We have leadership and STEM. STEM is a big, push now and something that we need with technology. And so kids can find their own path. And so, our very, very first Pathfinder games we did, so Mary Gaskins, who's the mayor of the city of Alexandria, Virginia, she loves the game. Her family loves the game. And so I kind of pitched her office on, kind of realizing this concept. This was a theory I had that, you go to all these events, and National Night Out is when I came up with the idea of the Pathfinder games. So National Night Out, I was here on Marine Corps Base Quantico, actually. I was at the USO. We've done a few events with the USO here. They've been a good partner of ours. And I was at the USO here, and they said, oh, are you going to go to the National Night Out tonight? Well, I didn't even know about it. I was like, I happen to have, like any good entrepreneur, like a table and the tablecloth and the games in the back of my car. I was like, yes, I'll be there. So I went, set up. Always be prepared, right? And I set up there and had the event, and I saw families kind of coming through, and I noticed something, and it's something I've noticed before, but I kind of was putting it together. It's like, you had these organizations, and I walked them all. If someone sees a table and a booth, like you have these conferences or events, and they don't like it, if it's not appealing to them, what do?
They walk away.
They'll walk away. Yeah. They're not going to stop. I don't care if you're a child or an adult or otherwise. Right. You're simply not going to stop. So I was like, how can we create a forcing function for kids to meet an organization that they wouldn't have met otherwise? That's actually a very, very good organization. That's cool. They might actually would have joined if they've heard about it. And that's the Pathfinder games. And so the Pathfinder games, I made it in such a way where basically kids have to do their mini missions, right, as both individuals and team. So there's a team construct. And so, when they came in here with, the city of Alexandria, we partnered with 16 different organizations. So we had Young Marines, Marine Corps, Sea Cadets, Stars and Stripes, all kinds of different organizations there, right? And really what I wanted to do was test the theory, like, if given the opportunity in the physical world, if kids made an organization, would they join it on the spot? And the answer is yes. We had kids wanting to join Young Marines as a result of this. And so what the kids did is that they checked in. They got a wristband based upon their age. So, Foundation, Builders, or Pathfinders. And then they joined one of two teams. We had Fighter Falcon, Gunny Gus. And then we had a card tournament, right? So they played Mission Match. And then they got stickers based upon, winning and playing the card tournament. And then we had mini missions. And so any organization, I don't care which organization you are, broadly, you can generalize into our three pathways: leadership, STEM, military. So we had placards at each one of the different organizations. And so kids would see the placard, and then they knew they had to do a STEM, leadership and military mini mission. They met the organization. That organization now has a captive audience. And I told them, I was like, create a mini mission that's 10 minutes or less, like less is preferred, right? You got a short, time span to inspire and plant seeds. And that's exactly what they did. Of course, the Marine Corps, pull-up bar and stuff like that. Like, that's the standard. We knew that. But the other ones, they all had their own flavors and, that were aligned and representative of their brand and organization. And that's what,
cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And so planting that seed to inspire. And then, of course, we had, the team mini missions as well. So we did this. This was an absolute hit. We had 100+ families come out. We had the organization saying, when is the next one? And we've done multiple Pathfinder games and mini Pathfinder games, I call them, since that time period.
That's awesome,
Very
man.
cool.
It's so
Very
cool. Love it. Well, Tim, this is, what you guys are doing, I just can't tell you. And, my kids, their experience being in the Marine Corps was very young. I retired when basically my youngest was 18 months and my oldest was, I guess he would have been 5. I don't do the math. Yeah, I need to work on my STEM. Anyways, they were super young. They don't really remember. And most of their time was spent overseas because we were in Dubai for most of it. Anyhow, all that is to say, it still really resonates, a lot of this stuff, because they do see, like, hey, this, like you said, because all the branches are represented, like, oh, that's something my dad does, or that's something my mom does. And so they can see themselves in that. And so what you guys are doing as far as challenging them, making it fun, trying to bring them along, it's really... I really applaud your effort, man. I'm so glad you came in to talk to us about this. And yeah, I'm really excited for what you guys have coming on the pike. And like I said, my boys absolutely love Mission Match. So,
well, I really appreciate it. I mean, this has been amazing, and I really appreciate you hosting me and just allowing us to kind of get more word out about what we're doing and where we're going. It's exciting, and when I received the photo from the family playing, and that's what gives me the fuel to keep going. Because with any kind of startup, you doubt yourself, right? There's uncertainty and everything else, and it's extremely difficult. We pitched to Walmart last week and ended up getting an invitation for the golden ticket in Bentonville, Arkansas, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So potentially you will see this coming to a Walmart near you in 2027, which will be great because, getting a game out there like this has absolutely never been done, right? So you have your traditional Uno and otherwise, but this game has real meaning behind it and can inspire a child to join an organization, set themselves ultimately for a career and success.
With life skills, and it's so multidimensional, and as much as I love so many of the games that you would find on the shelf, they are fairly one-dimensional. Like, there's your problem set, and there's a solution, and then that's kind of it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the...
Well, it's funny you say that because we, this idea to use, basically a QR code that connects, the physical world to the digital world as part of play in a way had never been done. So U.S. Playing Card Company... the president of U.S. Playing Card Company reached out to me. This was in October of last year. And it was really like, I know U.S. Playing Card Company. They're bicycle playing cards, right?
Yeah.
It's been around for 144 years. I actually have one of I brought it here, their original stock certificates is from 1905.
Dang.
That's cool.
Which is really, really cool. And, some of their old historic decks. This is the secret weapon deck and the Iraqi deck. They've had history with the U.S. government dating back to the Civil War. And so, these are actually given to me from the president of USPCC. And there's such a rich history,
So cool.
like the Ace of Spades deck, during the Vietnam War, when you know the history of that, right?
Sure.
But there's one that's quite interesting. The escape maps. I don't know if you're aware. During World War II, you had the POW MIAs, right? And so like we knew, U.S. government knew, where a lot of these camps were, right? And so we actually mailed, decks of cards to these camps. And if you open up the deck, and you dip it in water, a map will peel back. And this was a operation with the agency that USBCC worked with the agency on, and it was an escape map out of Germany.
No way!
I didn't know that.
Incredible. So like there's a rich history between USBCC and the U.S. government, and the fact that they've reached out to us and they see us as very much that continuity to bring fresh kind of alignment to the gaming industry that hasn't been done, and having this kind of game mechanic had never been released. They told me, we've been thinking about QR codes as part of play, but your product is the first product ever to have been released in the retail marketplace that had this. Monopoly actually copied this. Well, I don't know if they copied us, but they released after us the same thing. So I found that interesting. I found that, to me, that's a great win. That now people are able to kind of like marry that up, if that makes sense. So
yeah, everything you're doing, I'm really looking forward to following what you guys have coming down the pike. And sorry, we sort of ran out of time, but you've got another card game coming down, and for all of our, at least from the Marine side, our Marine listeners, but I'm sure it's everybody. You got some spades
Absolutely.
For kids, man.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for what you guys have going on, and I really just applaud what it is you guys are doing. So
keep us posted.
Yeah.
And are we ready for my?
You got it. Here you are.
Yeah,
here's your time to shine.
The signature sort of trademark closing question. So tell us, what was your best day in the Marine Corps?
Best day in the Marine Corps. Wow. Good question. I mean, honestly, going through OCS, and there's two tracks, right? You can go to the depot, Paris Island, right, or Quantico. But then in the day, it's the EGA that like you're going after. The rank, it doesn't really matter, right? So just getting the EGA, completing OCS, and I think we had 75% attrition rate, like going through OCS.
Yeah.
And just getting that EGA, I think, was something that I was incredibly proud of. That was it was difficult to do, all the preparation that was going into it. I remember all the workouts and everything else, like getting ready so I'd come in shape. I think that's one of the most landmark days I've had in service. So
yeah.
I mean, that's why you sign up.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, thinking of the attrition rate, man, I hadn't really thought of this, but yeah, by the time you obviously when everybody gets there, the entire squad bay is full. Mm-hmm. By the time you graduate, everybody's moved down. You got about half a squad bay full of people, and you're like talking to folks because it's all alphabetical. So now all of a sudden you're talking to people that you really didn't know earlier because they were down on the other end, and now they're down there. We're all sort of grouped in this one area. So, yeah, it is a really magical day getting your Eagle Globe and Anchor. But so Tim, thank you so much for coming down and spending time with us. And
yeah, thanks for your time.
Again, I can't tell you how excited I am for what you guys are doing. Really looking forward to what you guys got coming down the pike.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. You have heard the voices or contributions from Major Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Litchman, William Truding, and our guest. Ty Frazier is the editor, sound engineer, and technical producer. The Marine Corps Association is not an agency of the U.S. government. The opinions expressed in this episode are the personal views of the participants and do not reflect the official position of the United States Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, or the Marine Corps Association.